Hello and welcome to the SEAI's 180 Degrees podcast. I'm your host, Sinead Ryan, and over the course of the next 12 episodes, I'll be joined by special guests to talk about the state of play of Ireland's energy revolution, how we can be smarter energy users, what renewable technologies are coming into our homes and communities, and how small businesses can benefit from decarbonising now. Welcome to the latest episode of the SEAI's 180 Degrees podcast. I'm Sinead Ryan, and today we are taking a closer look at businesses and the role they play in Ireland's energy transition. We welcome back Fergus Sharkey of the SEAI, who previously chatted with me on sustainable transport and electric vehicles. This time he returns to studio to discuss how SEAI is supporting businesses to decarbonise and save on their own energy costs. Now, I'm delighted to also welcome Tina Dowling, CEO at the Watershed, home of sport and leisure in Kilkenny. The Watershed, which provides a host of indoor and outdoor sporting facilities and swimming, were finalists in the SME category at the SEAI Energy Awards. Tina will discuss how they got started on their energy journey and, more importantly, why. Welcome, Tina, and thank you for joining us today, and welcome back, Fergus. Fergus, let me start with you. We know that lots of businesses have successfully decarbonised a lot of the energy use that they had. Now, a lot of them, of course, have done it for cost reasons because they are running a business at the end of the day. But talk to me a little bit about the landscape in Ireland when it comes to business, because in a lot of ways they're ahead of the domestic market.
Yes, you can look at the sector in two ways. You know, large energy users or industry, and then small businesses. So they're very, very different kind of animals, really. Large business, in a lot of cases, are significant energy users. We know about data centres, they mostly use electricity. But there's others that would use a lot of heat, a lot of thermal demand for processing milk or for producing pharmaceuticals or sterilisation, or whatever it might be. So they're heavy energy users. There's not a lot of them. There's only about maybe 2,000 significant energy users around the country. And really, 5 or 10 of them could be 80% of industry demand. Just a small cohort of really, really significant energy users. So they're quite motivated around this. They have a lot of pressures coming from shareholders and from their customers. And, so they're investing quite a lot. And then we have a huge long tail of small business. So there's about 300,000 small businesses in Ireland. About 90% of them are micro businesses. So they have less than 10 employees. So that's a hugely diverse landscape. But within that, a lot of them are within buildings. So it's a different type of energy use. A little bit more akin to our home. You have fabric, which needs to be insulated. You have heating systems, which predict heat space, or in the case of Tina's business, also heat a pool and a leisure space. And you have, electricity use for lighting and for appliances and so on. But there's also within small businesses, small manufacturing companies as well. So it's quite diverse, but large industry would be, I suppose, they would have engineering services within their business that they can go and get at this, where small businesses generally, the accountant is the manager, is the front of house, is the person who tidies up at the end of the day. It's a lot more difficult for them to get going at this.
Now, we know that SMEs, small and medium enterprises, and in particularly micro businesses, are the backbone of Irish business. Family firms, shops, retail outlets that make up our towns and villages throughout the country. I would imagine that a lot of them feel they've enough to be getting on with without worrying about how to decarbonise and how to do things in a kind of carbon neutral way, even though they may well agree with the principle of that. So what are the challenges facing those very small businesses who may be already pinned to their collar in trying to run day to day?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is maybe something a business is concerned about. Generally, that concern would arise around energy costs, and we saw that massively in 2022 and it continued into 2023, and it's still a challenge today. But we would characterise small businesses generally as being time poor, cash poor and knowledge poor. So they don't have the time to focus on this. If they do, they don't have the knowledge to understand what they might need to do. And if they do decide to do something, maybe they don't have the cash to do it because there's other parts of the business that need cash and there's other things calling for investment within the business. That's very, very typical. That's where we SEAI has to intervene, the state has to intervene and try and support those small businesses. But, it's a big cohort, 300,000 businesses. Everybody's diverse, everybody has different needs, is at a different place. So it's quite a hard sector to work with and to support properly.
Okay, well later on we will chat a little bit about the supports that are available and how SEAI is helping small businesses transition. But let me turn now to Tina Dowling. Talk to me a little bit, Tina, about the Watershed in Kilkenny, what you do and what services you provide.
Thank you. Yeah, the Watershed is a sports and leisure centre. So we have a 25-metre pool. We also have a kiddies pool and a learner pool. We have a gym. We have a studio where predominantly our fitness classes take place. We also have a sports hall arena. Lots of different sport and activities take place there, including large events. That's inside the building. Outside the building, we also have AstroTurf, a full pitch size synthetic pitch surface, along with a five-a-side area. We also have an athletics track and a grass pitch. So I think we cater for every sport you can think of in Kilkenny and the surrounding areas. And we cater for an awful lot of our local clubs, which use us as their home grounds, which is fantastic. But we hopefully do provide sports and leisure for all as per our
It sounds
logo.
to me like you might provide competition for Paris in the Olympics this summer.
It's not just hurling in Kilkenny, it sounds like.
It sounds like to me.
We're open for that business too.
Yeah, aren't you all? So that's a big enterprise, right? Definitely. And I would imagine that the energy costs, particularly in the last 18 months where they've been really hiked because of global events, I would imagine your bills have skyrocketed over that time, or businesses like yours.
Oh, it certainly has. For us, we experienced a 50% increase on our electricity and gas bill, which was absolutely substantial to us in the last 18 months. So much so that we really had to examine our business from an energy point of view to see, well, what can we do here? Because there was no signs of the cost of electricity in particular going down, and gas for that matter. So hence, I suppose, the energy projects I engaged with over the last 2 years, essentially, to see what we could do, to see what I could do to help the business sustain these high energy increases.
What would your pinch points be for a business like that? I presume keeping a pool warm is a big ask, and maybe floodlights if you have them, or is it just the day-to-day light and heat?
It's both of those, plus also leisure centres. People wouldn't maybe know the ins and outs of the operation, but air handling units are a high energy user of electricity. And the Watershed's in business since December 2008, so just over 15 years now. So a lot of what I'm looking at when I'm looking at energy projects is the wear and tear of equipment that was installed just over 15 years ago. And you have to look at that as well from the point of view of as much and all as there's lots and lots of different projects that we can complete to maybe save on costs and be more carbon neutral. We also have to take into consideration the capital cost of changing items and equipment that's 15 years old now, and that certainly comes into it.
So you're going through this first end of life cycle change with a lot of that equipment. So talk to us then a little bit about what you have done and how you have managed to decarbonise a lot of your usage and change the way you use energy.
The big projects that we engaged with was an LED retrofit. So that's the lighting in the pool, the gym, the sports hall and our reception area. We did that a couple of years ago and that was very successful, and we definitely noticed a decrease on our energy bills with that. More recently then we installed PV solar. Again, that generates approximately between 20 and 25% of our electricity usage, in a year, which is fantastic. That was really beneficial in 2023 and a little bit of 2022. It was installed in October 2022. And then we put a new biomass boiler into our facility. And for us in the Watershed, gas would predominantly be the fuel that's used to heat our water, including our swimming pool and our domestic hot water showers. So what we've now done with the biomass boiler is the biomass boiler heats all the water. So we're using wood chip instead of gas, which is excellent to be able to do. And we installed that through an ESCO agreement with a company called Woodco, which is really, really working out well for us.
What was the cost implication of doing all of that compared to if you had not done it but you were paying higher energy prices?
Okay, so with that, I suppose PV solar, the overall cost for us was 163,000. Out of the 163,000, we were able to avail of a BEC, Better Energy Community Grant, which approximately came to about 50,000. So that was fantastic to be able to do that. We then got a loan for the balance of that because obviously from a capital point of view, we wouldn't have the funds or the capital available to actually put that investment into the facility. But what that's yield for us, or the return on investment essentially, is approximately based on energy or electricity cost per kilowatt hour, around 45,000 per annum, which is excellent. So like had we had not that in 2023, our bottom line would be close to 45,000 more than it are in deficit less.
So you're seeing an immediate payback. So in fact, you could probably calculate that the number of years it'll take when that becomes completely cost neutral for you.
Yeah, for us at the electricity cost at the moment, you're looking at a 3 to 3.5 year payback, which is fantastic.
So that's fantastic. And actually some of the stuff you mentioned there, because I know, it's a reasonably large size businesses that you run, Tina, but actually things like the LED light bulbs, the solar PV panels, that's what people are doing at home a lot of times. So these aren't complicated things. It's not new technology, but you're finding it makes a fantastic difference when it's all integrated and taken in together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, if you were advising businesses like yourself now with regard to this, or they're kind of taking a deep breath before they head into a project, is there anything you would have done differently?
I don't know about what I would have done differently, but what I would certainly advise people to do is do an energy audit on their business, because that for me, I suppose, gave me an insight to the different projects and opportunities that are available to us with the different equipment that we have, be it pumps or motors or lights or in air handling units, or a high volume of electricity and gas that we use on an annual basis. What could we do to that? So if I was looking back to what I would do differently, I suppose it would be to see what grants are available and what would yield the best return on investment. And there's many more projects that I'm planning to do in the Watershed to help that. And I think that's where an energy audit certainly avails of that, because you always have a menu of items or projects that if you look back to see what is next on the list to be able to yield more cost savings or be more carbon neutral, I think that's really important.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for that, Tina. So let's save businesses the trouble of that. Fergus, you're going to tell us what the grants are and what's available and what businesses can avail of.
Yeah, so it's really interesting listening to Tina there, and it's just like to take those steps are a big deal for business, but then you're yielding the reward. So really, we have a lot of existing sports, and we have new sports coming online over last year and this year for small business. We kind of talk in the language of understanding, assess, and invest, right? So the first thing businesses can do is to treat energy like money and understand where you're using it, where the costs are, where the opportunities are. That can be very basic, and we have an online energy academy where you can go and get free online training to be aware of these technologies, be aware of opportunities just around simple things like changing the structure, understanding your bill and understanding if you're on the right, do you have too big what would be called a maximum import capacity. A lot of people are paying for just a fixed charge to the supplier every month for energy that they don't use. That's really, really common. So there's a lot of just immediate little tweaks people can make. Tina talked about getting an audit, and that is the fundamental thing. For most small businesses, yes, they can build an understanding, but they're not going to become an energy engineer overnight or by taking a couple of modules. They'll have a better understanding of what's out there. But to get an audit, not only are you bringing an expert into your business to ask questions, to get them to look at what is that thing in the corner of the boiler room that's been there for 30 years? I've no idea what it does. Is it doing anything? So real simple, fundamental stuff, but they're providing you with a pathway forward, and they're assessing opportunities like renewable heat, like biomass. There are certain sites that would lend themselves to biomass heating, lend themselves better to biomass heating than others. Similarly, for a heat pump, you want to have somebody to look at it and say, is this a suitable investment for my building? Looking at solar PV, how much could I get? What would it do on the building? So your audit comes out as an action plan, effectively.
It's your starting point.
It's your starting
where
point.
I'm at now,
Yeah.
and then a pathway to where I want to be, and then the business owner can determine how quickly they get there, or how much it'll cost, or what steps. Does it prioritise the things that will have the most impact?
Yeah, so a good energy audit will present the likely cost, the available grants, and we'll come on to grants in a minute because it was kind of the start of the question you asked me, and the and then what it will save you. So it's pretty simple to kind of see which are the most impactful. And as Tina said, and we were chatting before we came on, the big things were the PV and the biomass and the LED, but there was a lot of little things done that maybe only cost a few €100, a few €1,000 as well, and maybe paid back in months. These are the unseen kind of heroes of energy efficiency. But then we get into the grants. So then you have a menu of options. Some of them will be just simple things that pay back in months or weeks in some cases if there's energy waste happening. And some of them will be more complex projects. So we have a number of grants available. Tina utilised two, actually. She utilised a community energy grant. And the benefit of that was there was a coordinator that really managed that process. So I think that was Three Counties Energy Agency for Tina's project, who are a well-established, a not-for-profit energy agency that are based in the region. And that's really giving you that expertise. Somebody who works with SEAI on a basis, somebody who understands what's in and out, what documentation is needed, can get a contractor, so you're not thinking who can I trust to do this, who's a good solar installer.
And it's a time saver, I presume, because
exactly.
A lot of business owners, this is not their special area, running their businesses,
Yeah.
and they want to outsource it, but they want to make sure they have control over it at the same time.
Absolutely. And then beyond that, Tina availed of the support scheme for renewable heat, but she's done it in a really innovative way. And it's not that innovative, but there's not many of it. So Tina didn't have to pay for the biomass boiler. Somebody else has paid for that installation. They're getting 15 years of support from SEAI for every kilowatt hour of heat that's generated. And then Tina is paying per kilowatt hour of heat from the boiler. So she's made no investment, and the heat is cheaper than it would have been from gas because it's been subsidised. So the support scheme for renewable heat is a support. What Tina didn't have as an opportunity when she was doing her solar, but since last July, we've massively expanded our non-domestic microgen scheme. So this is the most popular business grant, but it's for solar PV. And the beauty of that, and this is where we're going with a lot of supports, is it takes about 15 minutes to get approved if you're eligible for a solar PV grant of up to €160,000. So that's really simple for businesses. They can, again, it all has to be about making supports that work for business, that support them with the complications, and there's always complications with anything, but that they can get rapid decisions, that they can get moving very quickly.
So, Tina, Fergus mentioned some of the small supports there, because lots of business, of course, wouldn't be the size or scale or the budget of yours. Tell me about some of the little things that any business could avail of.
Some of the little things that I think were win-wins for us, we have, for instance, vending machines in our facilities. We have about 10 of them, 6 to 10 in our facility, and putting a timer on the plug essentially so that it would go off at night and come on in the morning, because they obviously need to be chilled to keep water cold and all that. So those little things came out of our energy audit as things that wouldn't cost us any money at all, very little. Other things is we have a business management system, which is in one way quite sophisticated, but quite user-friendly and easy to use once you understand what you're wanting to achieve. So, for instance, turning off radiators around offices, be it in the summer months, and putting that on a timer. And in our sports hall, which is quite a huge arena, we had heating running there at times where there was no bookings taking place, which makes no sense, obviously. But just understanding that, and at the housekeeping side of that, just to make sure that, if obviously when we have bookings and heating is required, it has to be on, that's fine, but not running like into the evening or into the nighttime when there's no users in that facility. Things like pumps running at a certain speed and energy efficiency. Wouldn't be an expert on that, but that's certainly something the energy audit helped us with, in a way that they explained that if you reduce the speed by X amount, percentage, you still get full usage of the pump or the motor, but but that it's just costing a little bit less to run. We also have features in our pool, so a mushroom that water comes out of for the kiddies pool, and a slide that has a little bit of water on it as well. And they were constantly running to some degree. And what we did with just a small, with our local electrician actually installed for us a push button at the side of the pool, where when there's families in the pool, especially on Sundays, for instance, the lifeguard or the swim teacher can actually just press that button and have it on, and it runs for X number of minutes. And then if it gets quiet, they don't need to turn it on. And again, if they do, they do. So children are very intuitive into that, and they're looking at the lifeguard or our pool staff to say, look, can the
switch
water
it
come on?
Exactly. Press the button. Oh,
which is fantastic. But again, it's it kind of educates the customer and the staff and the community to say, look, that we're putting little measures in place that would help us, cost save in terms of electricity, but also that we're not just running things constantly.
So really micro steps, and no different from that kind of we're told at home to cut down on the vampire usage, the stuff that's on at night, blinking lights and hum of electricity and all that, turning off plugs that just aren't being used. It's just that on a different scale.
It certainly is, because even things like, we have 45 staff working in the Watershed. Now, they're not all there every day. There's, obviously we're open from 5 a.m. in the morning to 10 p.m. at night. So like housekeeping in terms of turning off computers at night, turning off, many things that needs to be plugged in, like cleaning products or equipment, not leaving them, charging when they're not required, turning them off when they're fully charged, little things like, as you say, the domestic environment where, mobile phones not left charging all night, or
awareness.
TV awareness, exactly. But I think it's great for me and for the Watershed to be able to talk to staff about that and make them aware. We set up an energy committee, and more so just for staff to be aware of what we're doing, the high costs that the Watershed we're facing, and what we're doing to combat that. But also from a housekeeping point of view, as what staff can do to help the Watershed and, educate themselves and obviously the community and the customers as to what we're doing or trying to do to make our business more sustainable and more, energy efficient, I suppose.
So Tina, how did you find out that any or all of this was possible? Did it start with that audit?
It actually didn't, to be fair, with the ESCO agreement that we entered into with Woodco.
What's an ESCO agreement now, just for listeners who don't understand?
So an ESCO agreement is an agreement between ourselves, the Watershed, and a company called Woodco, where there's no upfront investment for the Watershed to install a new biomass boiler. How that came about for us is we had a lot of repair to do and a lot of high cost, I suppose, to repair an old boiler that was in place. And we were looking into different suppliers to see, get, the 3 quotes that's required to see repair and maintenance, to see what we could do with the old system. And we came across a company called Woodco who we met with, and they explained to us that if there'd be no capital investment for the Watershed, that they would be able to avail of a grant through SEAI directly themselves, so we wouldn't need to get involved in any grant application or anything like that, that the agreement with them would be that we pay on usage. So the ESCO essentially agreement is that the Watershed uses biomass or wood chip burned to heat all our domestic hot water and the pool water, and then we're measured on kilowatt hours used. So we have approximately 1 million kilowatt hours per annum that would have been in gas. So looking at bills and sharing our bills with Woodco to understand what is our usage on a monthly or annual basis, was able to establish the overall, because we're back and forth with Woodco as well with the agreement, so that we were satisfied and they were satisfied that it was a win-win for both, I suppose.
So Fergus, is this available then to all or most businesses, that you have this third party kind of who's availing of the grant, installing it for free in the business, and then the business user just pays for what they use?
Yeah, so often for small businesses, the cost is the barrier. And yeah, you can do this with a lot of technology. So biomass is the example here. It's very common in solar installs where you basically pay for what you use from the roof.
But you don't have to pay for the panels. Correct. And the people to come out to fit them.
Very, very common for lighting. So basically they put in a lighting system and say that will save you 30 grand a year. You pay us 20 for 5 years and that's it covered. And you're still saving, and then you continue saving after you've kind of paid it back if you wish. So you're obviously paying for it, but you're paying for it kind of from the savings. So that's the type of model that's out there. It's very common, but sort of below the radar in some ways. Like a lot of businesses immediately say, I can't afford 160 grand, grant or no grant, for a solar PV system. And the beauty is there's companies out there that will make that investment for you, take all of the technical risk, take all the complexity out of it as well, and just charge you for the power. And if it doesn't work and doesn't deliver the power, which is unlikely, but if it didn't, you have no risk. You're not paying for that power.
Well, of course, in business, they say there's no such thing as a free lunch, but it looks as if there's free solar panels.
Can be, yeah. Without a doubt, it can be made happen fairly easy.
So, Fergus, a lot of this will be very familiar to homeowners, because if they're getting a BER cert or some assessment to decide if they need, their attic insulated or their walls wrapped, whatever, there's a grant available for the BER cert, even to get that done. Does the same apply to business? Yeah,
so there's a €2,000 voucher effectively for energy audits for small businesses. For a lot of businesses, that will cover the full cost. If you're more complicated, you're a higher energy user, you might have to supplement it a little bit. But for most of the people that come through it, it's covering the full cost of an energy audit.
Do businesses find that a bit of an eye-opener just of itself?
Yeah, we get a lot of, anecdotal stuff back. We're doing a lot of survey work on it at the moment to see how many businesses have followed through on measures. And it's quite astounding how many have actually, around 90% at least followed up by investing in one measure from the energy audit. But what they normally find, actually, I think some of the stuff that comes back to us is just these things that were just wasting energy. A pump that had been running possibly for years, or somebody saying, that light has probably never shut off because it's not on a sensor and the switch was covered up by a bookshelf or something. So every night when you're going home, that light's running all night and it has been forever. Things like that.
That's infuriating, because that's just profit eating as far as the business owner is concerned. So no wonder they're motivated to change it. Tina, let me come back to you. What's left on your journey, as they say, with all this? Because, obviously you can't get everything done all at one go. You've had your energy audit. You've made huge strides down your pathway with it.
What's left for us, I suppose, there'll always be new projects that we can do to help save costs, but also be more carbon neutral. And for me, for the next year to 18 months, I suppose I'm going to focus on LED retrofit on the outdoor facilities, on the AstroTurf athletics track and grass pitch. I think that'll be really good and really important. Also, obviously, there's a high demand for EV stations. We don't have that currently in the Watershed. Part of that is relating to the capital cost to have electricity going out to the car park. So I'll be certainly looking at that. I think that would be a really good project to have, and for the community as well in Kilkenny, as people do gym or pool sessions, that they can charge their car at our facility. Which is really good. One of the other things I'm looking at as well is wastewater. So obviously the amount of litres of water on a daily basis that we heat, we're going to look at projects in relation to what we could do with the wastewater management side of that. It's fully treated with chlorine and many other chemicals. So there's lots of projects that we can do on that as well to help look at cost-saving measures, of course, as well.
Great, exciting times ahead. And was it the case you were able to use local contractors for a lot of that work?
Certainly, yeah, we did. We have many local suppliers who work with us anyway in relation to electricians and plumbers, and the air handling unit maintenance service as well. I think that's important for our community as well, to be able to use local suppliers.
And that's the thing, Fergus, isn't it? Because it's symbiotic, because the SEAI has a listing of all local contractors, and in fact, you have to have those lined up ahead of the grants to make sure that they're part of that and it's all registered and all that. And it brings employment then maybe to parts of the country where it wouldn't have been possible beforehand.
Yeah, there's an enormous ecosystem out there of companies that are delivering solar PV, delivering biomass boilers, delivering heat pump solutions, helping with optimizing an efficiency of lighting, of heating systems, of air handling units and so on. So, we can talk about, I guess, the benefit from a planet perspective, but this is an enormous enterprise opportunity in itself, and the amount of new businesses that are springing up around this to service the needs of large industry and smaller businesses kind of invest in decarbonisation is significant.
And nobody understands that ecosystem better than a business owner. So they are all dependent on each other. That is all we have time for you on this episode. Thank you very much, Tina, for joining us, and ongoing success to the Watershed in Kilkenny. And thanks to Fergus for providing his insights and knowledge on the overarching climate context Ireland's businesses are operating in and the supports that the SEAI can provide. If you've enjoyed this episode of the 180 Degrees podcast, well then why not review and subscribe to it now? And of course share it with family and friends to find out more about renewables and energy. Well then check out seai.ie.